Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our Silicon Global online series. Today, I'd like to welcome a very special guest. It's Alan Patricof, who is now on a totally new venture with Primetime Partners, but he's very well known for his past ventures, Greycroft and Apax. So we'll get to hear a lot more about it, his career and his new book as well. Alan, welcome to the show. Nice to see you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. So we're going to go for about an hour here and start with kind of a casual chat. And then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So get your questions ready and make sure they're good ones, because I'm going to be monitoring them for the best ones for Alan to answer. We really appreciate Alan taking the time out today to speak with us. So let me just tell you a little bit more about Silicon Dragon. If you don't know about us, here's a little bit of what we're up to. My new book is launching, Silicon Heartland. Beyond that, I'm a media entrepreneur and with a newsletter and a mobile app and our AskAVC Anything series and our videos and 3 other books. So I've been doing this for a while as a content creator, and it's what I love to do. So I think it's the spot for me for the time being. All right. So Alan, I put together a few highlights of your career here. There were so many, it was hard to pick and choose. But it's amazing to see. This is really only a very small part of it. And I have to say that I've really enjoyed reading your book, No Red Lights. Which really captures your personality and all the achievements in your career in so many different avenues, in the arts, in venture capital, private equity, in the theater, in editorial with New York Magazine and Huffington Post. So many great deals that you've done, including or participated in with Apple, AOL, Audible, New York Magazine, Venmo. And beyond that, you're a sporty person too. A marathon jogger, runner, biker, a world traveler, and beyond that, 87 years of age. And Alan, why do I have 114 right there?
Because I have written in the book, No Red Lights, which is why the title serves perfectly for what my lifestyle is, that I heard a lecture about 15 years ago, which said that we all could live to 114. The only reason we did this because on the way we got cancer, tuberculosis, hip replacement, pneumonia, all the things that affect most people. And each one chips off a certain amount of years from your life. And I've had several of these, like most people, but I still like the idea of the number of 114. So I decided I'd set a goal for myself. And so I decided a long time ago that I was going to live to 114, not a 15 or 13, but 114. And I actually think if I heard the same lecture today, it would probably say 120, because the age expectation in, not what they write about in the paper, which is affected by COVID and other things. But I think people who are born today could live to 120 based on biologics and
right,
and nutrition and all the exercise. So I think, so I'm very, I've got 27 years to go.
Well, amazing. And let me just show the cover of Alan's new book too, and I'll read you the subtitle: Reflections on Life, 50 Years in Venture Capital and Never Driving Alone. So what is the never driving alone? What are you getting at there?
Well, part of, there are many lessons in the book, and one of the reasons I wrote it was for to kind of impart some of whatever wisdom I have on younger people who are in the early stages of their career, and people later in their career who are thinking about the possibility of retirement, which is a word I don't know and don't expect to experience. But there are too many people forced into retirement by firm rules wherever they're working, or just are tempted by golf and warm weather and
Right.
tax benefits, and that's not part of my life. So I run my life with no red lights. And one of the things I've learned along the way is that everything in life is cumulative. Nothing happens because of something that just occurred. It's a collection of a long history of reputation that you build over the years. And I practiced a life where I am continually learning, continually meeting people, continually taking advantage of experiencing opportunities that presented to me. And when people said to me, my last fund took me about 3 months to raise, they said, wow, 3 months to raise a fund, that's amazing. And I say to them, 50 years in 3 months. And I think that tells you the whole story, that a life is one that's built up over many years and many activities and many people along the way, and you can't do it yourself. So I've been fortunate to have been involved with a lot of very good people, both entrepreneurs and investors, and people in other careers along the way, and have, as a result, led an extremely interesting life by anybody's measurements.
Oh yeah. Your book is a fascinating read. I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot too.
I'm still living that life. I mean, most people online would not probably like to have the lifestyle I live at the moment, which has got too many things going on for any normal person. But that's the way I've always lived my life, and I don't see it changing.
Well,
as you know, you and I were talking before we started. I just got back from 4 days at Burning Man, which is not exactly a typical thing that someone my age would do. And I'm in training to walk or jog the marathon in November. And I'm in active daily training. So, this is the way I've run my life, and I don't see it changing.
Yeah. Well, what was your experience like at Burning Man?
I'd say it was a very interesting cultural experience, not like nothing else I'd ever done. Definitely glad I did it. Before you ask me the next question, I'll give you the answer, which is I haven't decided whether I'll do it again next year. Although I must say my grandson last night, on the occasion of his 18th birthday, said to me, I'm now 18. You want to do it together next year? So that would be very tempting to me, actually. I did it this year myself. You're obviously part of a camp, much bigger group, but I think going with him might be an interesting experience.
Oh, yeah. Did you camp out?
Well, you don't camp out. You're in a camp and you're living under, it's definitely not glamping, but it's not pure camping either. It's, you're in something called a shift pod, which you can stand up in, and has a waterbed mattress, and a little bit better than some people who are in pure tents, but not as good as the people who are in RVs.
Right. Yeah, I've heard it's changed a lot since it first started. That it used to be really hippie.
Well, this is my first time, and I guess I can't describe myself as a hippie.
You think you were the oldest person there?
I have no idea. There are 80,000 people. There's no way of knowing, who's what age.
But the reason I asked that is because in your book you said, often you'll be the oldest person wherever you are, right?
Yeah, well,
that's fine. That's great.
It's not by intention. It's the nature. If you are 87 years old, there's just so many people that can be older than you. But I always like to say a more complete sentence is I'm the oldest person usually anything I do with the longest time perspective.
Oh yeah, experience counts.
Well, no, I look at the future. I don't go into a deal because I'm 87 and expect to sell it tomorrow. I mean, I have a lot of patience.
Right. Did you get any good ideas for new investments from Burning Man?
No. I didn't go for that reason. And if that's happening, I was not aware of it. It's more
Okay,
art, and music, and counterculture.
counterculture. Okay, so how do you, give me some tips on time management? And I think a lot of other people on this Zoom have the same issue of not enough time. How do you deal with it?
I think you're asking the wrong person. I am so overcommitted that I don't think anyone would, normal person would appreciate my schedule. As I told you, I have another dinner that's scheduled at exactly this hour that I'm going to get to an hour late, and I have a late meeting at 9:30 tonight. And I started with a conference in Washington this morning at 9 o'clock this morning, which is a 3-hour conference. So, you know, last night I spoke to a group in connection with my book, and that's the way it goes every day. And I have a bad habit most nights in normal times, not perhaps like now, but in normal times, I tend to triple book every evening. And, you know, I'm very active. I'm full-time involved in Primetime Partners with investing in this very exciting area of anything related to the aging generation. And I'm still chairman emeritus of Greycroft, where I'm sitting right now. I kind of go between the two offices. I walk from 76th Street every day down to 40th Street. Then I go back to the other office at 55th Street, then back home. Then now for training for the marathon in the park, which so it's an exhausting schedule for any normal person. And I'm just now today working on, I'm going to walk in the marathon for the benefit of the Alzheimer's Association called Caring Kind, to raise money for them. And I've just been working on that solicitation at the moment. And my original firm, Apax, is having its 50th anniversary celebration in 2 weeks in New York and the week after in London. And so it goes. So it's not much, there's not too much down that. I just came back from Burning Man for 4 days, and I went straight to Lake Como for a wedding for 4 days. So I tend to keep very active, and I'm in good health, thank God. So I can keep it up. And I
Okay, well, that's great. I mean, that's certainly something to look up to, I think.
I don't recommend this, my schedule to anybody.
Well, I've had a pretty frantic schedule since I became a solo media entrepreneur, but certainly I'm a very tough boss, very tough boss of myself. Much harder work and much longer hours than when I was working in magazines for others. But it's much more rewarding this way. So I'm sure you must feel the same thing. It must be so much more rewarding this way. You're working, these are your investments, you're nurturing them, you're mentoring these entrepreneurs, you're bringing along other partners with you and your associates. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about what that's like being at the helm.
Well, I mean, right now, Primetime Partners, my new firm, is made up of my partner, Abby Levy, and myself and 2 associates. So it's not too much management responsibility.
Okay.
In addition to which, Abby is the managing partner by design. We've made 27 investments in the 2 years we've been in business, mostly early stage startups, pre-seed, seed, and A rounds. And as long as that turns me on and gets me excited to get up in the morning, I start with my marathon training at 6:45 in the park, which means I have to get up at 6. And as I said, I'll be going tonight till 11 and tomorrow, start all over again tomorrow. So the management of the firm is not much, but there's due diligence involved in making investments. It's meeting entrepreneurs. It's trying to understand the economics of a lot of different businesses. So but I think the only way at my age you can be taken seriously is to stay actively involved. Can't be a
Yeah.
dilettante.
New York City is a great place for that too, because it's the center of so many activities.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
And New York City is a great place to stay active. It's the center of so many activities, and you can walk everywhere, or almost everywhere.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do go out on the weekends to the east end of Long Island, and you know, all of it makes for an interesting life.
Right. So do you follow any kind of special diet?
No, except that in connection with the marathon, I've been forced into drinking more water, which I don't enjoy, with electrolytes, trying to make that less painful. And I started finally taking some protein shakes because they told me I have to build up. But you know, I don't think it's necessary. I happen to like the way they taste, so that's fine. It's good.
Oh, okay. So you're not a vegetarian or
Absolutely not.
oh, okay.
I had roast beef last night for dinner.
Oh, all right. And just another personal question: how many hours sleep is ideal for you?
I would say I have a bad habit of coming home at 11 or whatever and watching MSNBC and through midnight, sometimes into the next hour. So I get about 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah, that's not much. Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me and tell us about some of your investments at Primetime Partners. You've made 27 already. What are some of the ones that you want to highlight?
Well, first of all, none of the names would mean anything to you, but you know, if you think about it, the fastest growing part of the population today is the over 60 market.
Yeah.
I mean, more people over 60 in 2030 than there will be under 18.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of money to spend, and because they're in, you know, in the later stages of their life, so they have this hopefully disposable income, and they are have a big Rolodex and a large, hopefully a knowledge base. So it's a very interesting market that not too many venture people were focused on when we started 2 years ago. I think there are a few more today, but we pretty much had a white space. And so we've gone into telemedicine for seniors. We've gone into caregiving for seniors. We've gone into a couple of menopausal cosmetic companies, because we've actually modified our original approach from 60 and over to 50 and over, because it seems to be a more natural break than what we originally thought. And we're doing mental health over telemedicine. We're doing software for nursing homes and senior living facilities. So we have a very diversified portfolio. We're very much interested in the field of loneliness for seniors and how to mitigate that. Long-term care insurance, longevity. That's the key buzzword today. Is everybody is focused on how to live longer. I'm not focused in how I can live longer. I'm just going to live longer. But a lot of people who potentially could have diabetes, heart disease, some other malady, would like to prolong the time that they have on this earth, and are willing to, or are anxious to find nutraceuticals or hormones or just different training or eating regimens that will give them even a few years more life. So it's a very fertile field at the moment.
Yeah, I think community is really important in staying engaged. You know, whether you're doing volunteering or still working or investing or have some really passionate hobby that you're pursuing, like writing a book.
Yeah, well, that's right. And in between all this, I wrote a book.
Yeah. So what was your experience in writing the book? I know you had somebody helping you with the writing, but I read that you wrote 80,000 words longhand first, which is amazing. 80,000 is bigger than this book.
I had someone helping me to shape it into a commercial product, but I put it in a stream of consciousness.
Okay.
My mind works, which went from left to right to center to back again. So it didn't have a logical progression. It doesn't now. It doesn't now. And the brilliance, I picked the title, which I'm very proud of, because it does exactly convey how I live my life without red lights, because I've been very open to anything that was interesting in terms of an opportunity in my life. And as a result, I've been involved in politics, international development, art, theater, venture capital, and have a very broad, eclectic group of friends as a result. But where the biggest contribution that was made by the person who helped me, and I give her amazing credit, is that because I had this title, No Red Lights, it triggered in her the idea, the metaphor of driving a car. And so the chapters are broken up and it takes care of the problem of not having a logical progression. So it goes and it says, making a right turn, going on the wrong road, making a U-turn. And if you say making the wrong turn, the next chapter could be about investing in Broadway plays, or the next chapter could be about running. And it accommodated all the different activities, and it's worked. It's worked. People like the idea that it's just not, I was born and then I did this and then I did that.
Right.
It's also not about all my successes. I deliberately did not write about successes. I wrote about anything I could think of, and there's a lot of bad deals that are in there.
Yeah, well, I saw that you passed on Starbucks.
Yeah, I passed on Starbucks because I was too parochial in my outlook, and I didn't realize that, Starbucks was a different way of living, and it wasn't just another coffee shop, which is what I thought it was.
Right. So what was your best deal and what was your worst deal?
I don't really talk about my best deal, because the best deal is like, if you'll tell me what your best child is, I'll tell you what my best deal is. I think that, when you're in this business, there are lots of ways of measuring best. Is it the one you make the most money in? Is it the one that's the most famous? Is it the one that you like working on with the CEO? And I have all of those. And also, if you ask me what my worst deal was, I have too many of those to pick one that's worse than the other. So it's a combination of a lot of different involvements with a lot of different companies, and some of which were successful, some more than others.
Yeah. Well, timing is really important too. The timing of these deals and how far along the market is. I know you like to be early, get an early in on a new market trend, but sometimes that could be too early, I guess, right?
I've been too early many times. That is a problem. But the venture world is changing as we speak, and it's nothing like when I started. When I started, it wasn't a venture capital industry. It was just a deal business, and you had to go out and find things to invest in. They didn't come to you. In Primetime, we've had 900 deals shown to us in the last 2 years. So today, while we do prospecting a great deal, a lot of stuff comes in kind of over the transom or through a trusted intermediary.
I see. Through connections, through other deals that you worked on, other entrepreneurs that you worked with.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've also, you didn't ask me this question, but I've been a big proponent of women in venture. I don't know how many of your viewers or listeners are women, but I helped a lot of women in their career. I've been very supportive. My first partner was a woman. My second, when I started Greycroft, I started with a woman. I started Primetime with a woman. I've hired a lot of women in the business. I'd say more than 50% of our companies in Primetime were founded by women. So I'm a big believer and supporter. No, I don't go out and specifically look for women-led anything, but they certainly have an open door and always have had it. I had an interesting debate with someone earlier today in connection with this conference I was at, because continually gets brought up that women entrepreneurs don't have, are not as well represented. I forget the number, 12% of deals, or I don't know, 12% of venture capitalists are women. And I very strongly believe that that's really because there haven't been enough women coming through the process, and that, you go to a business school today, more than 50% are women. So you're going to see, we are seeing a lot more women founders, a lot more women in the venture business, and I think there's great opportunity for women in the field. What the debate that really took place today, which relates to your comment, is that when the person I had this debate with was saying all the things about underrepresentation of women, and really an interesting point was made, is that the real issue is that women don't have the networks and are not as well connected. And because a lot of the businesses we look at are referred by someone else, and if women aren't in the system and in the networks to pass on one to another, that there is a shortcoming there, and that can only be solved in time, and it is being solved.
Right. Do you think that women make better natural venture capitalists than men?
No, not necessarily.
In terms of being able to spot the talent that's necessary?
The three women I've had have been phenomenal. So I've hired a lot of women, and I think, I'm guessing Greycroft has probably as many, if not more, women professionals than men. Primetime is too small. Apax, I'm not familiar with where they are at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. So what about in the tech innovation world space today? Do you think it's going to be world changing? Are you interested in the metaverse at all?
I backed, I don't know if you ever heard the name Jaron Lanier. Jaron Lanier, Lanier, is probably considered the founder, the king of virtual reality. I found him in 1984, 83 at the CES show down in the basement, behind a bridge table, demonstrating his virtual reality. He coined the name at that time, which was done with a glove. And you could do the math. It's 40 years later. And now we're talking about the metaverse. It's been a long time coming. I'm not sure how active the take-up will be. I'm not sure how comfortable people will be in the metaverse. I think it has applications, and I think over time it will be solved. I don't know if it's the be-all and the end-all. I have no investments in that area at the moment, and have none that we're looking at. But applications in education, in science, in entertainment are all real possibilities. Medicine, particularly. So, it's taken 40 years to get where we are now. We'll see.
Well, do you think that the field is going to be, we're going to see the whole field disrupted, that you'll see new leaders emerge in the digital media world, digital advertising world? Or do you think we're going to stay with the traditional leaders? Actually, it's only been 20 years of these new social media companies coming in, but I'm already calling them traditional. But are these companies going to be disrupted, or do you see them staying as leaders?
Well, I don't think I see them for the older generation for a long while. So I don't think they're going to hit my radar, but I'm sure they'll hit Greycroft or Apax in some way. But I don't think it's something to rush into.
Yeah. What about crypto? Are you a crypto enthusiast?
No, absolutely no. I have no interest. I made a decision a couple of years ago that I've done everything imaginable, as I've described to you, but that I wasn't going to learn the new language of Ethereum and Bitcoin and the platforms that are being created. It's too late for me to start to become good at it. You know, I started at the beginning of cellular. I started at the beginning of the internet. I'm very much in the game, but to start playing around with Bitcoins or NFTs, and I'm very involved in the art world, but I actually don't get the NFT world yet, but it seems to be a lot of interest.
Yeah, there is. So being in New York, how has that influenced your investment, the type of investments you're making? Because I know you've made a lot of media investments and advertising related. How has being in New York, being a New York-based firm, altered your view versus maybe being in Silicon Valley? I know you had at least one partner in Silicon Valley, but you're in New York. So how has that impacted your venture capital decision making?
Well, Greycroft has as many people in Los Angeles as it does in New York. So we're totally a bi-coastal firm. Apax does not have an office in California, but it has it in London and Paris and
Right.
a lot of other places.
Yeah.
They've gone east rather than west. Although they're in China and they're in India. I built a reputation in the media business, which happened because I was in New York. I started New York Magazine. I did Audible, Huffington Post. You name some of these. So I've been involved in the whole iteration of the media world, and still am. But it's not currently. There is not a lot of interest in the media business. I was an investor in Axios, which we just sold. I think venture people are not interested in media. We haven't made any media investments in Primetime. You know, it's possible. Older people who are isolated at senior facilities, et cetera, are probably a good captive audience for some kind of media.
Yeah, well, AARP is not a bad magazine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good magazine, good quality. But of course, it's not privately financed, venture backed. So maybe there's an opportunity there. Well, what other technologies today are on your radar that maybe you would like to hear some pitches about?
Well, you know, in the world I'm in now, there isn't a lot of, or in general, you don't see a lot of new technology. You see applications of technology. I think the new technologies are going to be involved in space exploration. They're going to be in energy, in solar, electric vehicles. No one of which do we invest in because it just doesn't fit our marketplace. But I think that actually my personal opinion is the best area to invest in is probably the biotech area, which I have not invested in 20, 25 years, but I think there are incredible breakthroughs.
Oh yeah. No, I've been following that from the Cleveland Clinic and their whole venture unit that they have. And the whole outgrowth of biotech startups from Cleveland Clinic.
And there's going to be a lot more done. There's going to I can't find a specific technology to entice you with at the moment. But they're the logical things you read about. Artificial intelligence enters into everything, and I have to say that AI is being used in some things we've looked at in our market in Primetime. We're looking at a company recently that's doing, I don't mean to be so specific, but doing urinalysis where it's able to pick things up through a toilet that differentiates between who's using it and can then translate that through some very sophisticated molecular spectroscopy to pre-diagnose problems before they even arise. People forget that the two things that you do for every doctor exam is urinalysis and blood. So this is a different way of collecting blood on a regular basis and with data that is very predictive. So that's the use of technology, but I can't say, a technology that everyone can run out and invest in, and we haven't invested in it, just looking at it.
Right. Well, they were testing wastewater to detect COVID.
Yeah.
That was an interesting development. Okay, let's see. I want to also ask you a little bit about your aspirations for politics. Any passion to be in politics? I know you've been
Absolutely not.
Supporter of
Yeah.
political leaders.
Yeah. I have no interest, although I did find I had never had any interest. While I was very, very involved with politics, democratic politics, honestly. I had no interest in going into the administration, which probably made me an interesting person, someone who's really actively involved and didn't want to go to Washington or didn't want to become an ambassador or anything else. I really had no interest. And that's unusual for someone who's involved, particularly coming from the financial world. But I do like the idea of having some relationship with what's going on down in Washington, whether it's a commission or directorship, a board or whatever, which meets once in a while and just keeps you into the Washington scene, because I think it's a very interesting complement to one's life. I've had the opportunity on several occasions to have roles in Washington that were fit to exactly what I'm talking about, not be involved, but not too involved.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed reading about that too in the book as well. There's many interesting stories in your book. But one thing you didn't really talk too much in the book about is international. Although I know Apax had a Japan joint venture or partner at one point.
No, I did. That was my creation. I created that partnership, which was called Apax Globus, and I spent a fair amount of time in Japan, and that eventually went away when I was leaving, and the partner from Japan didn't want to stay as part of the Apax group and went independent on a very friendly basis. And I'm still very much in touch with them, but it's not so Apax doesn't have a Japanese office now. They built a Chinese and India office, which took place after I left.
Okay, all right. Do you have any interest in what's going on with US-China tech, kind of the battle or the competition, or maybe you don't call it the same?
I'm not well enough informed, and I'm not involved in that battle.
Okay. Well, let's see. We've got a question here, and let's see what this is. Team Draper or market size? Oh, okay. Team Bill Draper or market size? Don Valentine. What's most important?
Wait, I'm sorry, what's the question?
Team or market size? Team, is the team or the market size more important in
And
a,
who is this coming from?
somebody named Jim Simmons?
Oh, okay.
Do you know him?
You said Tim Draper and Don Valentine. That's what got me confused.
Yeah. Now it says Tim, and then he has parentheses, Bill Draper, or market size, parentheses, Don Valentine, most important.
Oh, I see. He's giving,
Yeah.
they have different opinions.
Yeah. So where do you weigh in on this?
I would go for team, but I think it's a valid, dilemma, which is which.
Right. Okay. Which breakthroughs in biotech are you most excited about?
Well, my wife passed away, and that's in the book, from Alzheimer's, and I was very involved in all Alzheimer's drug effort. I'm honestly not optimistic about finding a solution for Alzheimer's in my lifetime, and that's another 27 years. I think that's a very tough one to solve. I do think that there are so much effort is being put into, things like cancer drugs, MS, ALS, and a lot of things that can be solved with genetics. That I don't want to pick a particular area, but I think the biotech area is an interesting area if you know what you're doing. It's complicated. As a result, I don't invest in that area because you really have to. It's like Bitcoin. I mean, you really only much more complicated.
Right.
Much more knowledge of science. So I've not participated.
Right. What's your average deal size, and what investment stake do you typically take?
Our average deal size is, if we started Primetime, we would have said $250,000 to $1 million. I would say today $500,000 to $2 million, because as we get our sea legs, we're tending to put a little more money in. But the biggest problem is today, when you ask the question about percentage ownership, we're going through a very heady time, and venture valuations have been a little crazy. And unless things change, it's valuations even in startups are not realistic in terms of what the prospects for returns are. So it's what I'm getting around saying is our percentage are not big enough for what we're investing. And I'd say we're investing anywhere from 1% ownership to 6% ownership, because we're not operating with a lot of capital, and valuations are higher than they should be. And to stay in the game, we want to participate, but we try to exercise discipline, and we've walked from many, not several, many deals because of valuation.
Sure, well, that's good. I mean, how is the economy impacting your startups?
Well, so far, it honestly hasn't had any impact, because most of the companies we invest in are health, 2/3 are health related.
Okay.
And they're dealing with problems that are in many cases reimbursed by insurance companies or health plans. And these kind of services have to be provided. The government has to provide it, Medicare, Medicaid, Medicare Advantage, all those are support services. And the insurance companies will do anything to prevent someone from going to the hospital for one day. I mean, the savings are so enormous that they'll spend anything to keep people out of the hospital.
Sure, yeah. So there's another question here. This one's actually coming in from Hong Kong. He says, we have a shared interest in longevity science and synthetic biology. Have you been investing in that as well? And are there any areas in particular that you're drawn to? I think you answered that in part, but anything you want to add?
Well, we have an investment in a company called Cenegenics, CENEGENICS. Cenegenics runs 25 clinics around the country that are focused on analyzing people's health and guiding them in terms of extending life cycles. And it's been a business for a fair amount of time. It's not a startup. It's the one company we have in the portfolio. It's not a startup. And
Okay.
it's doing very, very well, as a matter of fact, because people are very focused on this.
Sure. Yeah, we're all focused on it. So what are the criteria you're using to evaluate businesses to invest in? Do you have a list that you go through, or do you, is it more kind of serendipity, or do you have an actual list? What is your criteria? The question here.
What is the criteria for
investing, your investment criteria?
well, to me, the team is number one.
Yeah.
Market size, the opportunity.
Yeah. Market size.
And the financial economics around the business. And those four elements not just guide me in terms of, well, valuations, I'm sorry, you got to throw that in, but they guide me not just in the initial investment, but more importantly in what to support in subsequent rounds. Because if you try to be disciplined, if you're not getting, the companies are not getting the take up that you want, I hate the word bridge. Bridges to no place. So I'm not a big believer in a bridge. But if the management is still like as much as you did in the beginning, if the product is making progress, if the market is still there and the valuation is realistic, I'm prepared to support it. But if you're missing three of those four ingredients, I'd rather take my licks and walk away.
Yeah, well, one of the really interesting parts of your career is how you basically pivoted from private equity when your first firm became more focused on private equity. And so you really spun out or started Greycroft as a venture capital firm, and to get back to kind of your roots and your own interests. So that's kind of been the story of your career too. Now you're also again following your own interests and it's still in venture. What is it about venture that you like more than private equity?
I think venture, I find much more exciting to be involved with a company and be part of its growth and to identify with it. I mean, my history. You obviously, thank you, read the book. You're telling more about the book than I don't think more than I remember, but most people. There's a certain excitement from being in a company that, being involved with Apple Computer, being involved with Audible, being involved with Office Depot, Sunglass Hut, Huffington Post is more interesting than, being involved with a bland software company that is where all you're doing is buying it or an extrapolation of this cash flow. In early stage deals, startups, you get the juices going with the belief in the product and the management and the opportunities that are presented. And I think that I'm still, as I say, maybe I said in the book, but I've certainly said it. Every day I wait for the elevator door to open. I mean, this is a metaphor. The elevator door to open, and out will come another Steve Jobs. I mean,
right.
I don't think that happens as much in the private equity business.
No.
Doesn't.
No. Or maybe a Jack Ma. People still talk about Steve Jobs. They don't talk about Jack Ma of Alibaba quite as much as they did 2 years ago. But anyhow, I agree with you on the venture capital side, because I was also writing about private equity and the whole field, but I gravitated toward the entrepreneurship side of it because I like to be around innovators. And another point I wanted to bring out in your book was your point about how patents were not the be all and end all, that it was more important to stay with the market trend and not worry about so much about the next patent and getting the next patent through. So that was takeaway that I had from your book.
I like the fact I noticed that one of your people who wrote in the chat line was recommended by someone I know who had read the book and recommended the book to him. That's a good sign.
Yeah, it is a good sign. Yes, word of mouth is great. So another takeaway I had from your book was a lesson for me, because, you know, when I was starting Silicon Dragon, it's as its own little media venture. It's very tough. And for a while I rode the China wave, and that was great. The China California wave, which was great because there was so much activity. And then, you know, I really, your point about if you're having trouble raising venture capital, right? If you're challenged and somehow turn to your connections, you don't have to ask for like $1 million or $2 million straight out. You can ask your connections and maybe build together a pool of money that can support your startup to get going. And I wish I would have followed that advice earlier on. That's great advice. Okay, that's too much about me, but look, let me launch the poll, and I'm going to read out the questions because I don't think Alan can see them, but he can certainly answer them as everybody else is answering them online. Then we'll give the results. Okay, first question is, are you a this is easy. Are you a VC entrepreneur family office creator? Maybe in Alan's case, it's at least 3 of those. Okay, the second question is, what percentage of US VC is from Silicon Valley, New York City, and Boston? 90%, 50%, 75%. Okay, I let people weigh in with their answers and I'll keep going. There's a few more questions. What is the fastest growing city in the heartland? Indianapolis, Detroit, or Columbus? Or none of the above? No, I'm kidding. Are you back in the office yet? Yes, no, once in a while. Are you doing business travel again? Yes, not yet, no plans. What is the ideal age for retirement? Almost everybody here said never. So we're all in sync with you, Alan. Most people are back traveling again. Half of the people are back at work. Everybody weighed in on Columbus, which is the right answer, the fastest growing in terms of population. 15% increase in population over the last decade. Okay, the right answer, everyone seemed to get that one again, 75%, 35%. I mean, 3/4 of the venture capital in the US is on the coast. And that's about it. I mean, hey, congratulations, everybody. You did so well on the little quiz here. And we do this just for fun. It's not for any other reason, really. But sometimes we get a little bit of gauge of what's going on in the industry. All right. So let me share my screen again. And we're going to close up very soon because I know Alan has a very important dinner to get to. And I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Invest Hong Kong. Thank you for being with us, Invest Hong Kong, for many journeys. Actually, we just did a program last week from Hong Kong on Asia's emerging giants, and there were several from Hong Kong. Then I would also like to say a word about our next couple of shows that are coming up. There are going to be 5 shows in a series about the Heartland VCs, the top VCs from the former Rust Belt, which is becoming a tech belt, slowly but surely. So we have VCs from Columbus, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Cleveland, and more to come. So hopefully you'll sign on for that and join us for these the Heartland series, and also sign on to everything else we're doing. And let's give Alan our thanks, our super thanks for joining us on his super busy day, and let him get on to the rest of the activities. I really appreciate it, Alan. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be recording. We did record this, and this will be online for all to enjoy. All right.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, and good night.